You were born with an extreme sensitivity to electromagnetic radiation. Touch a phone and your skin will peel right off. Your heart will stop. That's what my mom drilled into my head from the time I was a little girl. To survive, I went 20 years without ever touching electronics. I was locked in a dark room covered in tin foil, like a caveman, spending my days gluing matchboxes and washing bloodstained sheets. And on the other side of the wall, my brother had the latest gadgets, a top-of-the-line gaming PC, and all the love and money my parents could pour on him. Until one day, a drone spiraled out of control and slammed straight into me. Its spinning blade sliced my arm, and its glowing indicator light pressed against my skin. I shut my eyes and waited to die. But nothing happened, nothing except the gash on my arm. In that moment, I finally understood. There was no such rare, incurable disease. It was all a lie, a monstrous scam to drain me dry and hand everything to my brother. Shoreline City. High-Tide Grand Hotel. Laundry room, 3 floors underground. The sun never reached this place. The air was always thick with the sharp reek of bleach and the damp smell of mold. The dim explosion-proof light overhead buzzed with a steady electrical hum, like a countdown to death. This was the dream job my mom, Claire, had pulled every string she had to get me. She said, "Sally, the basement walls are thick. No cell signal. It's perfect for your condition. You should be grateful. If it weren't for your illness, your brother would already have the newest VR gaming system. Work hard and pay the family back." I believed her. For 20 years, I wore heavy anti-static cotton clothes and thick rubber gloves, day in and day out, washing mountains of reeking sheets and tablecloths. My monthly salary of $3,000, I handed every cent over to my mom. I didn't even dare glance at the neon signs on my way home, terrified that the deadly radiation would kill me. Then today, the heavy iron door of the laundry room swung open. A group of sharp-suited executives swept in, flanking a man who walked like he owned the room, because he did. The man was tall, well over 6'2", with cold, sharp features and a jawline carved like granite. His perfectly tailored black suit stretched across a body coiled with explosive power. He stood there with casual indifference, yet the air around him seemed to drop to freezing. Hank Graves. Absolute ruler of High-Tide Incorporated. The youngest and most ruthless titan in Shoreline City's business world. I shrank into the corner by the washing machines, trembling so hard I couldn't lift my head. Because the executives with him were holding tablets glowing with blue light. Some were even recording with their smartphones. "Stay away, please, stay away." My voice shook violently as I pressed myself into the corner, both hands clutching my throat. The radiation would kill me. My mom said that if I got too close to any glowing screen, my skin would erupt in red welts, my throat would swell like I'd been scalded, and I'd die gasping, in agony. Hank stopped. His gaze, cold and sharp as a hawk's, swept over me, this strange creature cowering in the shadows. "What's going on?" His voice was low and smooth, but carried an authority that didn't tolerate questions. The hotel manager broke into a sweat, mopping his forehead and stammering, "And Mr. Graves, this is the laundress, Sally Reed. She has some issues. Severe electromagnetic radiation phobia. Can't be near electronics." Hank narrowed his eyes, a flicker of scrutiny passing through them. Just then, one of the assistants, too nervous to hold steady, let the latest model tablet slip from his hand. It hit the tile floor and slid straight toward me, slamming into my rubber shoe. The screen blazed at full brightness, playing a high-definition promotional video of the hotel in flashing, vivid color. "Ah!" I let out a scream so sharp and desperate it sounded like a feral cat with a broken spine. I lurched backward, my back slamming against the cold tile wall with a dull thud. My fingers clawed at my collar as I gasped for air, cold sweat soaking through my coarse uniform. "Take it. Take it away. I'll die. I'll actually die." I shook like a leaf in a storm, squeezing my eyes shut, waiting for the end. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Half a minute passed. The choking stranglehold on my throat never came. No searing pain, no melting skin. My ragged breathing began to slow. Hank stepped forward, his expensive custom leather shoes splashing through the puddles on the laundry room floor. He bent down, picked up the tablet, and walked straight over to me. "Look at me." His voice bore down on me like a physical weight, pressing into my soul. I couldn't move. I was frozen solid. He let out a cold laugh, then reached out and gripped my chin with his long, powerful fingers, forcing my head up. His knuckles were cool, calloused from years of writing and training, solid and real. "Sally Reed," he said, looking down at me, "what are you shaking for?" I bit my bloodless lip so hard I tasted copper. Afraid of dying." Hank let out a short, cutting laugh. Something shifted in his eyes, open, undisguised mockery. Then he flipped his wrist and shoved the blazing screen right up to my face. "Less than 4 inches away. Then open your eyes and watch closely. See if you die." The cold blue light stung my eyes, long accustomed to darkness. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. Because what I saw, what I felt, was beyond the sheer terror in my head. My body felt nothing. No rash crawling across my skin. No shock. No cardiac arrest. My breathing stayed steady. My heart pounded, sure, fast enough to break my ribs, but that was fear. Not a medical reaction. Hank let go and pulled a white handkerchief from his pocket, wiping his fingers with slow, deliberate care, like he was cleaning himself of something filthy. Find somewhere else to play your little games. High Teed Incorporated doesn't keep dead weight. He dropped the handkerchief on the floor and walked out, his entourage of silent executives trailing behind. The basement fell back into silence, broken only by the roar of the washing machines. I collapsed onto the wet floor like a ragdoll, staring blankly at my reflection in a puddle of gray water. Gaunt face. Brittle hair. Eyes wide with terror. I looked like some medieval creature that had crawled out of a tomb. A complete joke. I hadn't died. I'd been inches from a high-intensity screen and I hadn't died. A thought, cold, slithering, poisonous, began to coil around my brain, squeezing my heart tight. After work, I didn't take my usual route home, the darkest alley, the one with no streetlights. Instead, I wandered through Shoreline City's busiest commercial street. It was the first time in 20 years I'd walked down a main road at night. Massive LED billboards blazed everywhere in blinding colors. People walked past with their heads down, glued to phones, Bluetooth buds in their ears. Cars with smart sensors whizzed by. In my mind, this place was a gas chamber. The deepest circle of hell. And here I stood, breathing air thick with exhaust fumes, completely fine. I walked to a brightly lit phone store. Through the glass doors, shelf after shelf of electronics glowed with soft light. I clutched the only $200 I had, the bills I'd found in a corner of the laundry room today, not yet handed over to my mom. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door to what felt like a whole new world. The salesgirl took one look at my faded cotton clothes and the faint smell of bleach clinging to me, and her eyes turned dismissive. Still, she came over with a fake smile. Buying a phone? We've got the latest models. Starting at $6,000. Refurbished section is in the back corner. Help yourself. I ignored her and walked straight to the used counter, pointing at the cheapest smartphone, a scratched-up screen, nothing fancy. How much is this one? My voice scraped out like sandpaper. $150. No haggling. No returns. With shaking hands, I pulled out the crumpled bills and handed them over. The cold metal rectangle felt like a live bomb in my palm. I could barely hold it. I ran, sprinted, into an empty dead-end alley. The night wind was cold against my thin clothes. I leaned against a brick wall crusted with moss, and followed the salesgirl's impatient instructions. Hold down the side button. The screen lit up. White light flooded my face, streaked with tears and grime. I reached out one rough finger, tentative, painfully slow, just barely grazing the glass. Cool. Smooth. The screen glided under my touch. No welts. No trouble breathing. I was alive. Perfectly, absolutely alive. Ah. A sound came out of me, raw, broken, hopeless. I slid down the rough wall and collapsed into the muddy dirt, clutching the cheap phone to my chest, and I sobbed. 20 years. The best years of my life. Locked in an attic covered in tin foil. No friends. No school. No world outside. Not even a glimpse of a TV screen. I thought my parents were protecting me. I thought they loved me. I thought I was a burden dragging the whole family down. My mom always cried and said, "Sally, Mom doesn't want to lock you up, but the radiation outside will kill you. For your sake, your brother has to hide under the covers just to play on his phone. We've all sacrificed so much for you. You have to be grateful." My dad would sigh through his cigarette smoke and say, "Your illness is a bottomless pit. You have to be sensible. Work hard. Make money. Pay the family back for saving your life." And my brother Lucas would look at me with that smug, pitying superiority. "Stay in your cave, sis. The high-tech world belongs to me. You're just a caveman." It was all a lie. All of it. They used one absurd, monstrous lie to strip away every right I had as a human being. They turned me into a slave, a money-making machine, to feed their precious son. Rage. Like wildfire, it burned through my chest. It dried my tears. It burned away the last scrap of feeling I had for that family. "Done crying yet?" A low, cold voice came from the mouth of the alley. I jerked my head up. Hank stood in the shadows, a cigarette burning between his long fingers, the red glow casting his sharp features in stark relief. What was he doing here? Hank walked toward me, his long legs eating up the distance. In the narrow alley, his presence pressed down like a weight, the absolute authority of someone who owned every room he walked into. He stopped in front of me, looking down at the cheap phone still glowing in my hand, and the corner of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. "I had my assistant looking through your file," he said, blowing out a thin stream of smoke. His voice was flat, like he was reading a verdict. "Sally Reed. 22. Dropped out of elementary school. Medical history, severe electromagnetic radiation allergy. Contact triggers anaphylactic shock." He bent down, suddenly close. The clean scent of tobacco mixed with his expensive cologne wrapped around me. Liar. His voice was low, his eyes sharp as knives. I looked up, meeting that aggressive stare head-on. I'm not lying. My teeth were clenched, my eyes bloodshot. I was the one who was lied to, for 20 years. Hank's eyebrow lifted slightly. My defiance seemed to surprise him. I don't know where I found the courage. I grabbed the hem of his expensive suit like it was the last lifeline in the world. Help me, I said, staring up at him. Take me to a hospital. I need a full checkup. I need proof. Hank stared at me for a full 10 seconds. I didn't flinch. There was no submission in my eyes, just burning hatred and resentment, so thick it was practically spilling out. That pure, raw hatred seemed to interest him. Why would I help you? His tone was casual, dismissive. High-teed ink doesn't take on problems. Because you find me interesting. I held onto his jacket, refusing to let go. You looked into me. You followed me. You want to watch the show, don't you? I'll give you one, a real one. Blood on the floor. Hank smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. He grabbed my wrist and yanked me up out of the mud. His grip was brutal, like he could snap my bones without trying. Sally Reed, he said, pulling me closer, his warm breath brushing against my ear, his voice like ice. Remember what you just said. My shows aren't easy to watch. Mess it up, and you won't like what it costs. I've already got nothing to lose. I met his eyes without fear. Half an hour later, I sat in the back of Hank Graves' extremely fancy Maybach. The cabin was climate-controlled, comfortable. The dashboard was a wall of high-tech screens. Even the seats had smart massage functions. I drank it all in, the radiation I'd been taught to fear like poison. Hank sat beside me, legs crossed, scrolling through international emails on his tablet. Dizzy? He asked without looking up. No. Nauseous? No. He set the tablet down and turned to look at me, his gaze deep and unreadable. Tell me about your wonderful parents. How they treated you. A pause. I'm curious what kind of lie can keep someone locked up for 20 years. I took a breath and closed my eyes. The memories came flooding back, dark, moldy, suffocating. My room had no windows. The walls, the ceiling, all covered in thick tin foil. Even the cracks around the door were sealed. The only light was a dim 5-watt bulb. I couldn't go outside. I spent my days gluing together matchboxes, stringing plastic beads. When I got older, my mom pulled strings to get me the hotel basement job. No cell signal down there. When I was 10, I found a broken digital watch someone had thrown away. I was curious, I just pressed one of the buttons. I stopped. My voice started to shake. My mom found out. She went nuts. She grabbed me by the hair and shoved my head into a bucket in the yard. Said she had to wash the radiation off me. I swallowed so much dirty water I almost drowned. Then she locked me in a dark metal cabinet for 3 days and 3 nights. No water. No food. She said it was detox. I cried and begged and clawed at the door until my fingers were raw. She just stood outside and told me it was for my own good. After that, I couldn't even look at something that glowed without shaking. I really believed I'd die. I was even grateful to them, I thought they were saving me. The car fell dead silent. I opened my eyes. Hank's face was dark, darker than I'd ever seen it. The mockery was gone, replaced by something that made my blood run cold. Stop the car. His voice was sharp. The driver hit the brakes and pulled over immediately. Hank pushed open the door and pulled me out after him. Where are we going? I asked, flustered. Hospital. He pulled me toward a brightly lit private clinic without looking back. Time to get your evidence. The hospital was owned by High-Teed Incorporated. Top of the line. Because Hank Graves had personally vouched for me, the director himself came in from home in the middle of the night to arrange the most thorough, most comprehensive checkup money could buy. Blood work. Allergy tests. EEG. MRI. Even genetic screening. I lay inside those cold, precise machines, listening to their whirring hum, watching the blinking indicator lights, and felt nothing but calm. This was the first time in 20 years I'd encountered real medicine. Before this, my mom had only ever fed me bitter, foul-smelling, herbal remedies, from God knows where. 2 hours later, I sat in Hank's private lounge, opulent and exclusive only for him. The hospital director walked in with a thick stack of reports, sweating under his collar. Mr. Graves. Miss Reed. The director adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, his expression complicated and stunned. My heart shot into my throat. My hands clenched together. Well? Hank lounged on the leather sofa, legs crossed, his voice lazy but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Miss Reed's health. The director swallowed hard, looking at me with a mix of sympathy and disbelief. Aside from severe malnutrition, significant calcium deficiency, and extreme vitamin D deficiency from prolonged lack of sunlight, there are no other medical issues. As for the so-called severe electromagnetic radiation allergy, He shook his head. It's complete nonsense. We ran Miss Reed through hundreds of physical allergy tests, including electromagnetic waves and UV radiation. All results came back negative. Miss Reed, you are a perfectly healthy, normal human being. Boom. Even though I'd already guessed the truth, hearing it confirmed by an authority figure hit me like a freight train. My brain went blank. Normal. I was normal. I wasn't sick. I didn't need to live like a rat in a lightless tinfoil room. I could have gone to school. Made friends. Run in the sunlight. Lived a real life. They, my own parents, had clipped my wings and shoved me into a cage they called love, bleeding me dry day after day. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood again. Tears fell like broken beads, silent, one after another, landing on the back of my hand. Hank waved his hand. The director took the hint and left, closing the door quietly behind him. We were alone. Hank stood up, walked over, and handed me a white silk handkerchief. Wipe your face. You're a mess. His tone was still his usual disdain, but the gesture wasn't harsh. I didn't take it. Instead, I reached out and wrapped my arms around his waist. Hank froze. Every muscle in his body tensed. Just let me. I buried my face in his tailored suit jacket, and 20 years of suppressed pain, rage, and despair exploded out of me. I cried like a wounded animal. Ugly. Loud. Completely wrecked. Hank didn't push me away. He stood there, stiff and uncomfortable, letting my tears and snot ruin his extremely expensive tailor-made suit. After a long time, so long I was nearly dizzy from crying, my throat raw and silent. A warm hand came down on the top of my head. He rubbed my dry, brittle hair, gently. Cry all you want, his voice came from above me, hypnotic. Then go get what's yours. With interest. A pause. Need me to kill anyone? Half joking, half serious, but there was a dangerous glint in his eyes. I lifted my head. My swollen eyes burned with cold fury. No. My voice came out in a rasp, each word deliberate. Death is too easy. I want them to suffer. I want them to lose everything they care about. Hank looked at me, and a deeply satisfied smile spread across his lips. Good. That's what I like to see. He turned and picked up a document from the table, tossing it in front of me. Sign it. I looked down. Employment contract, special assistant to the CEO of High Teed Incorporated Group. You never went to school, did you? Hank looked down at me like a king bestowing a decree. I'll teach you myself. From now on, you're mine. I'll give you an identity, resources, and the whatever you need for revenge. And the price? I asked. I didn't believe in free gifts. 20 years had taught me that everything came with a hidden cost. Hank bent down, planting his hands on either side of the sofa arm, caging me in. Our noses almost touched. Our breath mingled. The price, he said, is your life. It belongs to me now. I want absolute loyalty. I looked into his deep, dark eyes, picked up the pen, and signed my name. Deal. The transformation did not happen overnight, but to Sally, it felt like a lifetime compressed into weeks. Hank Graves was a brutal teacher. He did not offer pity, nor did he coddle her. Instead, he treated her mind like raw iron, throwing it into the furnace of his corporate empire to be forged into something unbreakable. You have 20 years of catching up to do, Hank told her on her third night. In the penthouse apartment he had provided. The space was sleek, minimalist, and entirely glass, a stark contrast to the tinfoil coffin of her youth. You don't have time to learn the alphabet and work your way up. You learn by doing, or you drown. Every morning began at 5. Hank hired private tutors to teach her basic economics, corporate law, and social etiquette. By afternoon, she was sitting in the corner of his high-level boardrooms, silent as a ghost, taking notes on her new tablet. At first, her fingers would tremble when she touched the screen, a phantom echo of the terror her mother had beaten into her. Whenever she hesitated, Hank would look over from the head of the mahogany table, his cold, dark eyes boring into her. He wouldn't say a word, but the silent challenge in his gaze was enough to make her grip the stylus tighter, forcing the fear back down into the dark corners of her mind. Within 3 months, the gaunt, trembling girl from the laundry room was gone. The expensive nutritional supplements and rigorous physical training had filled out her frame. Her brittle hair was now a thick, glossy sheet of dark silk that fell past her shoulders. She wore tailored, charcoal gray suits that clung to her newly defined silhouette, and her posture was straight, her chin held high. Only her eyes remained the same, but the terror had been replaced by a quiet, calculating stillness. The quarterly reports for the logistics subsidiary are ready, Mr. Graves, Sally said, placing a leather-bound folder on Hank's desk. Her voice was smooth, devoid of the raspy stammer she had carried for 2 decades. Hank didn't look at the folder. He leaned back in his leather chair, swirling a Glass of dark amber whiskey. His gaze swept over her, assessing the sharp lines of her suit, the poise of her stance. Your family has been looking for you, Hank said casually. They've called the hotel manager 7 times this week. Your mother even showed up at the service entrance, screaming that the hotel had kidnapped her sick, helpless daughter. Sally's hands tightened slightly at her sides, but her face remained a mask of perfect composure. They didn't care about me. They care about the $3,000 that didn't show up in their bank account this month. Indeed, Hank murmured, a dark, amused smile touching his lips. He slid a tablet across the desk toward her. They've grown desperate. Your brother, Lucas, apparently lost a significant sum of money on an illegal online gambling platform last week. The loan sharks are knocking on their door. Your mother is looking for her cash cow. Sally picked up the tablet. On the screen was a detailed financial profile of her family, compiled by Hank's private intelligence team. Their house was heavily mortgaged, and Lucas's bank accounts were entirely empty, funded only by the scraps Claire could scrape together. They want their money, Sally whispered, a cold, vicious spark igniting in her chest. Let's give them a reason to ask for more. Hank stood up, walking over to stand directly in front of her. The sheer height of him still commanded the room, but Sally no longer shrank back. The bait is ready, Hank said, his voice dropping to a low, gravelly baritone. But remember, Sally. Once you cast the line, you don't pull back until they are entirely dragged under. Do you have the stomach for it? Sally looked up into his dark eyes, her heart beating with a steady, lethal rhythm. I survived 20 years in the dark, Mr. Graves. I have the stomach for anything. The meeting was set at a high-end tea house on the outskirts of Shoreline City, a place far too expensive for Claire and Lucas, yet quiet enough to avoid public attention. When Claire Reed and her son walked into the private room, they were sweating, their clothes slightly rumpled. Claire was clutching her cheap faux leather purse like a shield, her eyes darting nervously around the elegant, bamboo-paneled room. Lucas, dressed in a flashy designer shirt that was clearly a knockoff, looked irritable and impatient. Where is she? Lucas grumbled, pulling out a chair. If she's late because of her stupid condition, I swear to. The door slid open, and Sally stepped inside. Claire gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lucas froze, his mouth hanging open. The girl standing before them looked like a stranger. Her hair was perfectly styled, her skin radiant and healthy. She wore a tailored white cream suit that screamed wealth, and her wrist bore a subtle, elegant luxury watch. Behind her stood 2 towering, stone-faced security guards in black suits. Sally? Claire stammered, her voice cracking. Is that you? Hello, Mother. Lucas, Sally said calmly. She walked to the table and sat down. Her movements fluid and graceful. The guards remained standing by the door, their presence heavy and imposing. What is the meaning of this? Lucas exploded, recovering his arrogance. You haven't sent home a single dollar this month. Mom has been sick with worry, and I've got bills to pay. Where have you been? And what are you wearing? How are you even near those lights? You're supposed to be allergic. Claire immediately joined in, her eyes filling with cheap, practiced tears. Sally, baby. What happened to you? Look at your skin, is it burning? Oh, my poor sweet girl, you must be in so much pain. Who did this to you? Who dragged you out into the radiation? Come home with me right now, we have to get you back into the attic before your heart stops. She reached out to grab Sally's hand, but Sally didn't flinch. She simply pulled her hand back, just out of Claire's reach, her expression entirely blank. The allergy is gone, Mother, Sally said, her voice dropping like a heavy stone into the room. Claire's fake tears instantly dried up. What? What do you mean, gone? That's impossible. The doctor said. The doctor you paid? Sally interrupted, her voice dangerously quiet. Or the fake herbalists who sold you those bitter poisons for 20 years? Claire's face went pale. She glanced nervously at Lucas, who was scowling. What are you talking about? Lucas spat. You're a freak, Sally. You've always been a freak. If it wasn't for us keeping you safe, you'd be dead in a ditch. You owe us everything. Where did you get that suit? Did you steal it? Who are these men? I work for High Teed Incorporated now, Sally said, leaning back and crossing her legs. Specifically, I am the special assistant to Mr. Hank Graves. The company has a specialized medical research division. They treated me. They cured me. She lied smoothly, letting them believe there was some miraculous, expensive cure that only the wealthy could afford. She knew exactly how their greedy minds worked. If they thought she was cured by a billionaire's money, they wouldn't question the science. They would only see dollar signs. Claire's eyes lit up with a sudden, sickening predatory gleam. A billionaire? You work for Hank Graves? The man on the news? Yes, Sally said. My starting salary is $50,000 a month. Plus bonuses. Lucas nearly choked on his saliva. 50,000? A month? He leaped up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're making 50 grand a month. And you left us to starve? You selfish bitch. I'm your brother. I have a business idea, an AI startup, and I need capital. You have to give it to me. Lucas, sit down, Claire commanded, though her own breathing had become shallow and greedy. She looked at Sally with a grotesque, maternal smile that made Sally's stomach turn. Sally, sweetie, you know we only locked you up because we loved you. We didn't know there was a cure. We're your family. We sacrificed everything for you. Your brother didn't even get to go to the best private schools because we had to buy your medicine. Sally wanted to laugh. She wanted to scream. The sheer audacity of the lie was breathtaking. Lucas had been sent to a private academy, while she had dropped out of elementary school to glue matchboxes in a dark attic. But she kept her face perfectly still. She let them spin their web, knowing she was the one holding the scissors. I know, Sally said, her voice softening just enough to give them hope. I know. You did what you thought was best. That's why I'm here today. She signaled to one of the guards, who stepped forward and placed a sleek, black leather briefcase on the table. He popped the latches, revealing neat, glittering stacks of $100 bills. $100,000 in cash. Lucas's eyes turned completely bloodshot. He reached for the briefcase like a starving dog, but the guard slammed it shut, catching his fingers. Ow. What the hell? Lucas yelled, nursing his hand. This is just a token of my appreciation, Sally said smoothly. But I cannot simply hand over company funds without a proper structure. I have a proposition. For you, Lucas. A way for you to get the capital you need for your startup, and for us to secure our family's future forever. Claire leaned in, her voice trembling with avarice. What proposition, Sally? Anything. We're a family, we should work together. Sally smiled. It was a beautiful, empty smile. I have access to an exclusive, high-yield investment fund managed directly by High Tide Incorporated. It is reserved only for top executives and their immediate families. The return rate is 40%, guaranteed within 6 months. She opened her tablet and brought up a highly sophisticated, completely fabricated financial projection sheet. If you invest your current assets, including the equity on the house, I can sign the executive waiver to bypass the minimum entry barrier of $1 million. In 6 months, you will be millionaires, Lucas. You won't need to beg me for scraps. You will have your own empire. Lucas grabbed the tablet, his eyes scanning the numbers greedily. 40%? Guaranteed? Is this legal? It is for Hank Graves, Sally said softly. The wealthy play by different rules, Lucas. You should know that by now. Claire looked hesitant, the last shred of her cautious, manipulative nature fighting against her overwhelming greed. But the house is all we have. If we mortgage it fully, what if something goes wrong? Nothing goes wrong with Hank Graves, Sally said, her voice dripping with absolute confidence. But if you don't trust me, that's fine. Take the 100,000 in the briefcase. Go back to your damp little house. I will continue my life here, and we can go our separate ways. I've paid my debt to you. She signaled the guard to pick up the briefcase. Wait. Lucas screamed, grabbing his mother's arm. Mom, are you stupid? This is our ticket out. Look at her. She's living like a queen, and you want to stay in that dump? We fully mortgaged the house, we put in all our savings, and in 6 months we're set for life. Do it. Claire looked at the briefcase, then at Sally's pristine, expensive suit, and finally at her beloved son's frantic face. The trap was set. And the leeches walked right into it. We'll do it, Claire whispered, her voice trembling with greed. Sally, write up the paperwork. We'll do it. Over the next month, Sally watched through the digital monitors in Hank's office as her family tore themselves apart to gather the funds. Claire liquidated every single asset they owned. She took out a predatory, high-interest secondary mortgage on their family home. She cashed out her meager retirement funds. She even pressured her aging husband, Sally's silent, complicit father, into signing over his small pension plan. In total, they managed to scrape together $850,000. Every cent of it was wired into a specialized, segregated account under the name of a shell company, Apex Horizon Holdings. To the untrained eye, the contracts looked pristine, bearing the official seal of a high-teed subsidiary. But Sally had drafted them herself under the guidance of Hank's top corporate lawyers. The fine print, written in complex, nested legal jargon, stated that the investment was classified as high-risk speculative capital, and the fund manager held absolute immunity from losses. Furthermore, the collateral for the leveraged funds was tied directly to the Reed family's primary residence, with the debt instantly transferable to a third-party collection agency in the event of default. They just authorized the final wire transfer, Sally said, staring at the glowing monitor on Hank's desk. The progress bar reached 100%, and the funds were officially locked. Hank stood behind her, his hands resting lightly on the back of her chair. The warmth of his body pressed against her back, a solid, grounding presence. You didn't hesitate, Hank noted, his voice low. They didn't hesitate when they locked me in a tinfoil closet for 20 years, Sally replied, her eyes cold as ice. They didn't hesitate when they watched my fingers bleed from gluing matchboxes so Lucas could have a new computer. Why should I? Hank chuckled, a low vibration that she felt through her spine. He reached down, his long, powerful fingers gently tracing the line of her jaw, tilting her face up to look at him. You've grown sharp, Sally. I like it. But the game isn't over. Your brother is already spending money he doesn't have. It was true. Believing he was weeks away from becoming a multimillionaire, Lucas had already gone on a reckless spending spree. He had leased a luxury sports car, bought expensive designer clothes on high-interest credit cards, and spent nights throwing lavish VIP parties at Shoreline City's most exclusive nightclubs, bragging to everyone that he was partnered with High Teed Incorporated. Let him run, Sally said, a cruel smile touching her lips. The higher he climbs, the more bones he breaks when he falls. 2 weeks later, the trap was ready to be sprung. Sally sat in her office when her phone rang. It was Claire. Sally. Sally, sweetie. Claire's voice was frantic, laced with a shrill, borderline hysterical panic. There's something wrong with the investment portal. I tried to log in today to check the balance, and it says the account is suspended. And Lucas has some men at his apartment. They're saying his car is being repossessed. What's going on? Sally leaned back in her leather chair, looking out the floor-to-ceiling window at the sprawling, sunlit skyline of Shoreline City. Oh, Mother, Sally said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Didn't you read the market news today? What? What news? Claire shrieked. The speculative tech market crashed, Mother. Apex Horizon Holdings filed for bankruptcy this morning. The funds are gone. There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. Sally could hear Claire's ragged, wheezing breath, followed by a faint, choked gasp. Gone? What do you mean, gone? Our 800,000, our house, our savings. It's all gone, Sally said calmly. And because the debt was leveraged against your house, the bank will be arriving to evict you by the end of the week. No, 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 no. This is a mistake. You're Hank Graves' assistant. You can fix this. Sally, you have to save us. We're your family. Claire was sobbing now, a pathetic, desperate sound. Please, Sally. Talk to your boss. Get our money back. If you want to discuss this, Mother, Sally said, her voice turning razor sharp, come to the High Teed headquarters tomorrow morning at 10. I'll arrange a meeting. She hung up the phone before Claire could speak another word. The top floor of the High Teed headquarters was a monument of glass, steel, and ruthless power. When Claire, Lucas, and their father, Arthur, stepped out of the private elevator, they looked like ghosts. Claire's eyes were red and swollen, her hair unkempt. Lucas was trembling, his flashy clothes now looking ridiculous and stained with sweat. Arthur, who had spent 20 years ignoring his daughter's existence while puffing on his cigarettes, looked entirely defeated, his shoulders slumped. The receptionist guided them into a massive, glass-walled conference room. In the center of the room sat a long, polished obsidian table. At the far end stood Sally, looking stunning in a flawless midnight blue suit, her hands clasped elegantly in front of her. Beside her, leaning casually against the edge of the table, was Hank Graves. He was dressed in a dark, custom-tailored suit, his arms crossed over his chest. His dark eyes fixed on the incoming family like a predator watching prey enter. It's territory. Sally. Claire ran forward, but the two security guards instantly stepped in her way, their faces grim. Sally, please. You have to help us. The bank, they sent the eviction notice. They're taking the house on Friday. We have nowhere to go. Lucas's credit cards are maxed out, and those loan sharks, they threatened to break his legs. Please, sis. Lucas whimpered, his arrogance completely shattered. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry I called you a freak. I'm sorry for everything. Just ask Mr. Graves to give us the money back. He's a billionaire, 800,000 is nothing to him. Sally looked down at her brother, kneeling on the expensive carpet, begging for mercy. She felt no satisfaction, only a deep, profound disgust. Do you remember my room, Lucas? Sally asked, her voice quiet, yet echoing clearly in the vast, silent room. Lucas blinked, confused. What? My room, Sally repeated, taking a slow step forward. The attic. The one with the tin foil on the walls. The one where you told me to stay in my cave. Because the high-tech world belonged to you. Claire's face drained of what little color she had left. Sally. We did that. To protect you, the radiation. The radiation, Sally whispered, a cold, dangerous laugh escaping her lips. She turned and tapped the screen of her tablet. Instantly, the massive LED screen on the wall behind her lit up, casting a brilliant, high-definition white light across the room. Claire and Lucas flinched, instinctively shielding their eyes, as if expecting Sally to collapse and die on the spot. But Sally didn't move. She stood directly in front of the blazing screen, the light illuminating her calm, beautiful face. Her breathing remained perfectly steady. Her skin remained flawless. Look at me, mother, Sally commanded. Claire slowly lowered her hands, her eyes widening in absolute horror. I am standing in front of a 300-inch, high-intensity LED display. Sally said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. There are 12 active smartphones in this room. The wireless signal is at maximum strength. She took another step closer to them. I am not shaking. My skin is not peeling. My heart is not stopping. She looked directly into Claire's terrified eyes. You lied to me. The words fell like guillotine blades. You lied to me for 20 years, Sally said, her voice trembling not with fear, but with a decades-old, volcanic rage that was finally bursting free. You locked me in a dark, toxic cage. You forced me to breathe bleach and wash bloodstained sheets in a moldy basement. You took my youth, my education, my dreams, my very humanity, and you fed it all to this worthless, greedy parasite. She pointed a sharp, manicured finger at Lucas, who shrank back on the floor. You didn't do it to protect me, Sally snarled, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. You did it because you wanted a slave. A brainwashed, terrified domestic animal that would work itself to death and hand over every single penny to fund your precious son's life. No, no. Claire cried, dropping to her knees beside Lucas. Sally, that's not true. We loved you. We're your parents. My parents? Sally laughed, a sound so cold it made Arthur shudder. My parents died 20 years ago when they chose to bury me alive. She turned to Hank. Mr. Graves. Tell them what happens next. Hank stepped forward, his heavy leather shoes clicking rhythmically on the floor. He looked down at the pathetic family with absolute, chilling disdain. The assets of Apex Horizon Holdings have been legally seized to cover the outstanding debts of the bankrupt subsidiary, Hank said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly professional. As the primary guarantors, your family home, your vehicles, and all personal bank accounts have been liquidated. The eviction will proceed as scheduled on Friday morning at 8. Furthermore, Hank continued, a dark, satisfied smile playing on his lips, my legal team has filed a formal civil suit against Claire and Arthur Reed for 20 years of severe psychological abuse, unlawful confinement, and financial exploitation of a minor. The local police department has already opened a criminal investigation. No. Claire whispered, her eyes rolling back. She looked like she was about to faint. You have 24 hours to pack your trash and leave the house, Sally said, looking down at them one last time. And when you are sitting in the dirt on the side of the street, remember this, you did this to yourselves. Your own greed brought you here. Sally. Please. Lucas screamed, reaching out to grab her ankle, but one of the security guards stepped forward and brutally kicked his hand away. Get them out of my sight, Hank ordered. The guards grabbed Claire and Lucas by their arms, dragging them screaming and sobbing out of the conference room. Arthur followed silently behind, his head bowed, looking like a corpse walking to its grave. As the heavy glass doors slid shut, the echoing screams finally faded away, leaving the room in a heavy, peaceful silence. Sally stood by the massive floor-to-ceiling window, watching the tiny figures of her family exit the lobby of the high-teed building far below. They looked like ants, scurrying aimlessly, completely crushed under the weight of the giant they had tried to exploit. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow over Shoreline City. For the first time in her life, the light didn't feel like a threat. It felt warm. It felt real. A heavy, warm hand rested on her shoulder. Sally didn't flinch. She leaned back slightly, resting her head against Hank's chest. Satisfied? Hank asked quietly, his eyes looking out over the city with her. Yes, Sally whispered. But it's just the beginning. Hank smiled, his grip on her shoulder tightening slightly, not to hold her back, but to stand beside her. Good, he said. Because the world is very big, Sally. And you have a lot of lost time to make up for. Sally closed her eyes, breathing in the clean, crisp air of the high-altitude office, completely bathed in the warm, golden sunlight. The dark room was gone. The tin foil was torn down. She was finally, completely, free.